Everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination. If you are new to the channel, do not forget to like and subscribe for more content. So the last video we did on this little mini series, it was with the AFC East. Of course, we talked about like the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, and of course the defending Super Bowl champs, New England Patriots. Today we're going to be doing the AFC North. We're going to be reviewing all four of the teams' drafts. I'm not giving out grades. Like I said, I can't grade something I haven't seen on the NFL field yet, but I'll just give my thoughts about like all of the picks. And like I said in the last video, if I don't know anything about a player, like if I don't know much about that player, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know everything about him. I'm just going to say simply, I don't know that much about him. So let's just get right into it. So at pick number 10 overall, the Steelers actually traded up with the Denver Broncos to select middle linebacker Devin Bush from Michigan. In my opinion, the best coverage linebacker in the draft. Of course, it's a passing league, so you're going to value that a little bit more. A little undersized, but just as athletic as the other Devin in the draft, Devin White, who we'll talk about in a future video. But Pittsburgh, the last time they traded up for a defensive player, I talked about it on the J&A podcast. It was actually for Troy Polamalu, which, you know, we saw how he ended up being. I'm not saying, oh, well, this guy's going to be the Troy Polamalu of linebackers. What I'm saying is it's been a while since they've been ambitious and moved up for a player. They've kind of just been settling for whatever's there. That's why whenever you hear about the Steelers and trade talks to move up, you're just like, yeah, whatever, because they haven't done it in so long. So for them to actually do it, you know, it's refreshing. And I really love this pick, and I think he brings some attitude and some edge to the Steelers. Let's see, at pick 66 overall, they go with Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver from Toledo. Man, he is built exactly like Antonio Brown, but the question is, will he play like him? Probably not, but I will say this about Pittsburgh. They're really good at developing wide receivers, outside of maybe a couple here and there, like, you know, Marcus Wheaton. But, I mean, they have gotten production out of receivers who weren't really all that great on other teams, like, dang, I'm trying to remember dude's name. Darius Hayward-Bay. They were able to get a lot out of him, despite Oakland being, you know, terrible with him. Eli Rogers looked good for him. They just know how to get the most out of wide receivers. So I think Deontay Johnson here in the third. Yeah, the argument can be made. Better receivers on the board. There definitely were better receivers on the board in terms of my rankings. But the Steelers were high on him, and this is a fit. They needed that smaller guy that they can play in the slot. They have Juju, who's going to be the number one, James Washington, who's like the deep threat number two guy. So they needed that number three wide receiver, that smaller dude who could work the intermediate routes across the middle of the field. So I like the pick. Also in round 3, 83 overall, Justin Lane, the corner from Michigan State, I should say. It's a good scheme fit. He's a physical man coverage corner, kind of not that great in zone, but the man press scheme, like if the pass rush is really good, you'll see him excel in coverage because he is a physical corner. Not saying, you know, he can't be good in zone coverage, because, you know, the Steelers kind of pride themselves on that zone blitzing 3-4 scheme, but when they want to go man coverage, they're actually pretty solid. But they'll have to develop Justin Lane. So he does fit the physical mold, like the Steeler mold of a corner, but, you know, still a little bit of work to do, but it's a really good pick for that particular spot in the third round. At pick 122 overall, Benny Snell Jr., the running back from Kentucky, goes in the fourth round. Love the pick. It's not a sexy running back pick. Like, he's not a guy who runs a blazing 40. He's not a guy you can line up as a slot receiver. He's not Alvin Kamara or McCaffrey or Joe Mixon. He is a downhill bruiser. He is my type of running back. He's not necessarily a quote-unquote modern-day running back. He's just a dude who, you know, instead of doing all this sexy, cute offensive stuff, you just get a dude who's going to run it down your throat and who is going to be very effective in the run game. And if he runs the ball very good, I mean, they have James Conner there, but granted, you know, Connor's kind of an all-purpose back these days. You saw what he was able to do in the passing game, even though, granted, it's not Le'Veon Bell. They can bring in Benny Snell on goal line packages, kind of like what New England used to do with LeGarrette Blount. Just let him punch it in from 2 yards out. So I really like the pick, and I hope the Steelers use him because he was a beast at Kentucky. And granted, Kentucky used to be the basketball school. In round 5, pick 141 overall, Zach Gentry, the tight end from Michigan. To be honest, he's more of a blocker, but he does have a little bit of upside. He has good size. But concerns from a lot of NFL teams is he's a dude who has size but doesn't know how to use it. So, with the Steelers, they do have some good tight ends in that room, Vance McDonald being one of them. Maybe they could get something out of him. You never know. The Steelers, like I said, are good at developing these offensive skill players. And then around 6, 175, they go Sutton Smith, the outside linebacker from Northern Illinois. I don't know much about him, but I heard that NFL teams really liked him in day 3, so the fact that the Steelers got him in the 5th round is pretty good because I heard some teams really did like him at around that range. Also in the 6th round, they go Isaiah Buggs, defensive tackle from Alabama. Aaron kind of shit all over Alabama. I'm going to be honest with you. He did, saying that, every prospect's not going to be, all that. And I agree because the proof is in the pudding. Like I said, for every Mark Ingram they have, there's a Trent Richardson at the running back position. But I do agree that if it is an Alabama defensive lineman, you might want to look at bringing him in on your roster because he's very good. Isaiah Buggs was also solid at Alabama, and they just know how to develop defensive linemen. You look at Deshaun Hand last year, coming out of Alabama, he kind of got slept on a little bit. They didn't know what position he'd play in the NFL. A team like the Detroit Pistons, or not Pistons, Jesus, this isn't basketball. The Detroit Lions, they bring him in, and they play him as a defensive tackle in certain packages. And, Detroit, of course, has that hybrid defense. And Deshaun Hand was very underrated last year. Had a really good defensive year. Was able to get pressure, effective against the run. And who knows, Isaiah Buggs could be a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At pick 207 overall, they go with Ulysses Gilbert, the third from Akron. I don't know much about him. And at pick 219, they go with Derwin Gary, the offensive tackle from Maryland. Decent. The Steelers are pretty solid when it comes to developing offensive linemen. So, I'm going to take them at their word. I think they'll be able to get something out of them. I wish they would have addressed offensive line earlier because, they traded Marcus Gilbert, their right tackle. You look at Ramon Foster in the middle. He's getting older. Pouncey's in his 30s. I wish they would have addressed offensive line a little bit more. This was a good class to do so. But, I liked what the Steelers did. Overall, I didn't think there were any major reaches. But now we move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. At pick 11, they took Jonah Williams, offensive lineman from Alabama. Just a very technically sound offensive lineman. Probably not the best on the board still with Juwan Taylor. And you can make the argument Andre Dillard as well. But Jonah Williams seems to be a better fit for Cincinnati than those guys, except for maybe Juwan Taylor. They already have Corey Glenn, or Cody Glenn, I forget his first name. They already have Glenn, the former Bills tackle. Bobby Hart, they re-signed. They seem to be high on him as a right tackle. I don't like Bobby Hart. I think he's terrible, but Cincinnati paid him like $7 million a year, so who am I to judge? So Jonah Williams probably plays guard his first year. He'll probably play some right guard for him, maybe even left guard. But I like Jonah Williams a lot more as a tackle. I know the NFL doesn't, but honestly, I don't care. I'm the GM, and I say he needs to play tackle. Let's see here. In round 2, they go with Drew Sample, the tight end from Washington. I know people were very critical of this pick, and so was I. There were definitely better tight ends on the board. I thought Dawson Knox would have been a better fit. You could even make the argument for Chase Sternberger, even though, me, not the highest on him, but I think he'll grow on me eventually since he is a Packer. But they're definitely better tight ends on the board. Sample didn't really have the sample size, that you were looking for at the tight end position. Didn't really catch a whole lot of passes. But granted, there were a lot of tight ends in college who didn't have the necessary catches. You look at George Kittle and his final year. He didn't have that many catches at Iowa. And you look at a lot of these other tight ends, they're all not necessarily the most productive because a lot of college offenses kind of neglect the tight end position. Drew Sample, a really good blocker. I think he'll learn how to catch at the next level in terms of, getting himself open and, actually catching the ball. I mean, you have a quarterback like Andy Dalton who I don't trust vertically, so he is going to look for those tight ends a little bit more. And Tyler Eifert's always hurt, and CJ Uzama's decent. So maybe Drew Sample could become tight end number 2 for this team. Maybe he wins out the job. Round 3, pick 72 overall, they go with Jermaine Pratt, the inside linebacker from NC State. I like the pick. He's a former safety converted to linebacker, which means he's definitely going to have the speed. He will have, better coverage ability than most linebackers. And but the downside, of course, is he is a little undersized for the position. Like I said, I don't really care about size. I care about if he can play. But, in run defense, if he goes up against a guard, maybe he'll have the speed to get to the pursuit of the runner. But if he gets swallowed up by a big 330-pound guard, then, yeah, he's in trouble. But a good coverage guy. I think he'll be joining Malik Jefferson in that linebacking core, who I really like and think could take a little bit of a jump next year. I like those two as my linebacker duo if I were Cincinnati. In round 4, pick 104, Ryan Finley, the quarterback from NC State. He was tied for my 5th quarterback with, a dude that the Giants took at 6, whose name I refuse to say until their video comes up. But Ryan Finley, I think his ceiling is kind of a Ryan Tannehill-esque role, where he's probably going to be a backup, but if you need a guy to play for a few games for an injured quarterback, he'll be the guy to do so. Finley, and I think it's an interesting opportunity. He's going to be in there with Zach Taylor as a backup quarterback. Zach Taylor, of course, the former quarterback coach for the Rams, and the league seems to be pretty high on him. And I think if he can develop Ryan Finley to be at least a decent starter, someday, assuming that Andy Dalton gets kicked to the curb, then, good for Zach Taylor. He found a quote-unquote steal in the 4th round for quarterback, which I wouldn't be mad at all. I think Andy Dalton's had a lot of chances. At pick 125, they go at Renell Wren from Arizona State. A little bit of a steal. Well, I'm not necessarily going to say a steal, but really good value at that selection. A lot of people had him going kind of late 3rd, early 4th, and they get him towards the middle of the 4th. At 136, Michael Jordan, the center/guard from Ohio State. Not the basketball player, not the GOAT, Michael Jordan, but the other Michael Jordan. He's going to come in. I'm not going to say he has a chance to start, or he will start automatically, I should say, but he will compete for a chance to start. That's what I should have said. He'll have a chance to compete for a job. Maybe he competes for the center position with Price. Maybe he's like a 6th man that they use in big, heavy run formations. But I will say that he has a slight chance to possibly win a job. But he is good depth. Maybe a future long-term plan for the left guard position for, Clinton Bowling. I can't think of his name right now, but their left guard's like 29. But in round 6, they go with running back Travion Williams from Texas A&M. Really good running back. I like the value here. Some people had him gone a little bit before this, so the fact that you were able to get him in the 6th round, pretty good. And the end may be coming for Giovanni Bernard, as you'll see later. Back-to-back picks right here. They got Deshaun Davis, the linebacker from Auburn. He'll be good depth, probably a special teamer immediately, but maybe he wins over at training camp. You never know. And then at pick 211 in the 6th round, they go with Rodney Anderson, the running back from Oklahoma. A very electrifying college running back. Of course, injury concerns with his knee and a lot of other stuff is why he fell. A lot of mileage as well. But Rodney Anderson, a really good pickup, and I think he is the perfect backup for Joe Mixon. Or even rotational guy. Giovanni Bernard, I think he's in a contract year, so they went with 2 running backs who can absolutely come and be productive, and I don't have a problem with that at all. And then at pick 223 in the 7th round, Jordan Brown, the corner from South Dakota State. I don't know much about him, but personally, I wish they would have drafted a corner a little bit earlier, maybe, in the 3rd round. But I do like the Jermaine Pratt pick. Maybe in the 5th round they could have looked at a corner. There were still decent options there. Just a little too late for me. Next, we got the Baltimore Ravens. They picked at 25, and they went with Marquise Brown, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. Really love this pick right here, and I think he's going to be a very fun player to watch. I don't know how great he'll be because it all depends on Lamar Jackson's growth from year 1 to year 2. I think he will be better, but it all really just depends on that, because this offense is kind of built like the Colin Kaepernick 49ers offense, where it's based on the pistol formation, the pistol offense, a lot of read option, some quick passes, a little play action here and there. If Lamar Jackson could be a great play action quarterback, then Hollywood Brown's going to have big play potential, because they already run the ball effectively. They did it with Gus Edwards. Imagine what they're going to do with Mark Ingram as the lead back. And if they can set up the play action, I think Hollywood Brown will have a lot of big play potential. At pick 85, they go with Jalen Ferguson, the pass rusher from Louisiana Tech. Kind of a raw guy. I mean, he was very productive, of course. He has the all-time record in the NCAA for most sacks in a career, behind Terrell Suggs, or ahead of Terrell Suggs now, who the Ravens drafted. So, of course, it seems like they value the production a little bit from that pick, but Jalen Ferguson is still raw. I think he needs to develop a true pass rushing rate. He just kind of won off of athleticism and situational pass rushing. Not saying he won't be great, but the Ravens tend to develop those pass rushers very well. You look at Zadarius Smith, who just got himself a bag from the Packers. You look at Terrell Suggs, of course, he had a great career, but he was also a great player as well. And then also, guys that they currently have on the roster: Tyus Bowser, Tim Williams, Matthew Judon, who I'm pretty high on as well. There are guys there that can absolutely rush the passer, and I think Ferguson has the chance to either start or be a really key rotational guy. At number 93 overall in the 3rd round, Miles Boykins, the wide receiver from Notre Dame. He has some size, a pretty solid catch radius, which means you can kind of throw it in different spots and he'll come up with the football. And I think guys with a big catch radius need to play for this team, because, listen, I'm not going to bash Lamar Jackson. I'm a bigger fan of him than Aaron is, and I think he can be a good quarterback, but dude, you're going to have to show some improvement. You can't come out here throwing 54% like you did last year. That's not going to win a ton of football games. You can't just win by running the ball, because eventually they're going to stack the box, and when they stack the box, they're going to force you to throw. And if you can't complete at least 60% of your passes, then you're screwed. So, Miles Boykin, a nice, big, solid receiver. And then in round 4, 123... 113 overall, Justice Hill, the running back from Oklahoma State. I really love the pick. Very fast, very elusive in the open field. Can catch the ball as well. Just a dynamic playmaker, and this is what the offense needs: is a bunch of playmakers. You look at Marquise Brown, you look at Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position. This is just what they need. They need playmakers. They don't need guys that can just play one position. They need playmakers. That's what their offense is built around. At pick 123 overall, they go with guard Ben Powers from Oklahoma. He's going to have the chance to come in and start right away. He could compete for the left guard spot. Marshall Yonda's getting older, so he could be an understudy as well while playing on the offensive line. It's just a really good pick. It's a shame that he slid to the 4th round. I think he's better than that. He's better than the grade would assess. But at pick 127, Iman Marshall, the cornerback from USC. They've done a good job developing corners. Anthony Everett could take a jump next season. So, I don't hate the pick, but there are definitely better corners out there. At pick 160, Dalen Mack, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. They lost the defensive tackle in free agency, so it makes sense that they add quality depth. Not mad at the pick. And then at pick 197, Trace McSorley, the quarterback from Penn State. This is a very intriguing pick, and I'm going to tell you why. Not because it's a quarterback, but because they wanted him to work out at different positions. They talked about him potentially working out with the running backs, the receivers, the safeties, and he turned it all down and he said, no, I'm a quarterback. And, I respect it, but it's not like he was in Lamar Jackson's position where he was a Heisman winner entering as a potential first-round talent. if you want to have longevity for a guy that's a 6th-round quarterback, you might want to look at doing some other stuff. And I know what you're going to say, well, JJ, that's unfair. You always get on the people about Lamar Jackson being called a running back, but here you are saying Trace McSorley should look into doing other stuff. Yeah, I know. Lamar Jackson's also a Heisman winner who ended up being a 1st-round pick, who is basically tailor-made to potentially be a franchise quarterback. And ain't nobody talking about Trace McSorley and that type of breath. So he should look into potentially doing some scheme trick plays from different positions. Lamar Jackson had to do it for a little bit when Joe Flacco was starting. He came in at wide receiver, as a wildcat quarterback, as a running back. He had to come in and do all that BS scheme work as well. So Trace McSorley can do the same thing. I don't see anything wrong with that. And John Harbaugh joked around about it, saying that it's a possibility. And he said, who knows, maybe we could have 3 quarterbacks out there. So he seems to be wanting to entertain that as well. So I wouldn't be too mad right now if I were the Baltimore Ravens. And if I'm Trace McSorley, get over it, dude. No one's talking about you like they're talking about Lamar Jackson. Just get over it. But that was their last pick. Overall, I liked what they did in the draft. First 4 rounds, they killed it. They added quality depth throughout. And finally, we got the Cleveland Browns, of course, at pick 17. You know, they traded it for Odell Beckham, so technically he does count in this. So they get a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Great start. Now at pick 46, they go Greedy Williams, the cornerback from LSU. Depending on who you ask, the number 1 corner in this draft. They got him at 46. Similar to last year with Josh Jackson, who I had in my top 3 for the cornerback position. He ended up falling to the 2nd round for whatever reason. And he had a shaky start in year 1. I think year 2 he will definitely take a jump. But for Greedy Williams, he just needs to clean up some of the technique stuff. I like him raw, you know. I like his ability in the run game as well as a tackler, even though people are complaining about his tackling. I just think he has a good nose for the ball, and he's, you know, not necessarily instinctive, but he has the raw athleticism and skill to know where to be, and I think he's going to be a good corner next to Denzel Ward. At pick 80 overall, they go with Sione Takitaki, the outside linebacker from BYU. They go with Taki's chips right here. I don't know much about him, but could be a quality depth guy. Maybe they have a plan to groom him as a starter. I don't know. At pick 119, Cedric Redwine, the safety from Miami. I don't know much about him. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? I don't, like I evaluated over 120 plus players. I mean, what do you want from me? I can't look at everybody. I'm sorry. Round 5, 155, Mack Wilson, the linebacker from Alabama. Kind of surprised he was taken all the way this late in the 5th round. I thought at worst he would be like a late 3rd round guy, just because people were probably higher on Jermaine Pratt. And, some of those other smaller linebackers, that's why, I thought he would at least be a late 3rd rounder at the worst, probably an early 2nd at the best. But he went in day 3, like dead in the middle of day 3. I thought at one point teams were going to try to trade up to get him, and they didn't. The Browns just literally got him. Let's see, at 170 overall, they go with Austin Seibert, the kicker from Oklahoma. Yeah, I guess. He'll be reuniting with Baker Mayfield. That's great. They need a kicker. Maybe he might make the roster. Cool. At pick 189, they go with Drew Forbes, the offensive lineman from Southeastern Missouri State. Okay, that's cool. I didn't even know that was a school. So I'm sorry. And at pick 221, Donnie Lewis Jr., the cornerback from Tulane. Good cornerback depth, has the potential to make the roster, at least as a special teamer, maybe in on dime packages. You never know. But overall, I thought all these teams had pretty solid drafts. I would probably say the Ravens had the best overall draft. I think they'll get the most players on the field. I thought Pittsburgh had the best first pick made with Devin Bush. I think for the future, I like some of Cincinnati's picks. And for Cleveland, definitely best value pick for me has to be Mack Wilson in the 5th round. I don't know if he'll start. Remember, they have Joe Scobert, Jannard Avery, they have Christian Kirksey. Maybe he does start. Maybe he does start. I don't know exactly where he would start because they already have their 3 spots solidified. And they barely use Jannard Avery as a linebacker anyway. They kind of use him as an off-ball linebacker. So we'll just have to see how all of that works. Of course, when the season starts, day 1, we'll have a better idea. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Let me know how you feel about the AFC North teams down below. And the next video will be the AFC South. So stay tuned for that. Peace.